Hey, I'm Todd. Thanks for choosing to watch my video, and if you would subscribe it, like it, all that stuff, that'd be great. Otherwise, enjoy the video, and I hope it gives you the information you need and is helpful to you. Take care. So I do get a lot of comments with people saying I have saved them a lot of money, and I do get questions, hey, can I send you some money somehow? And now there is a way, if you so choose, called fan funding. You'll find it on the channel page right there. So we're looking at a Hyundai 2012 Hyundai Velostar, I believe is how they call it. Gonna do the left front CV axle. It's probably basically the same for both sides. Got 5 lug nuts, 21 millimeters. We want to break them loose. Everything is going to be left to loosen, right to tighten. So counterclockwise, we'll break all those loose. If you got your tire on the ground, go ahead and break them loose a turn, and go ahead and jack up your vehicle. Use safety stance, protect yourself, and take the tire off the rest of the way. And we'll see an axle nut and of course the rotor, which we can see, and some other things. So let's get the tire off and then go from there. So here's the axle nut. You can see it's staked. Like, take a screwdriver in here and maybe tap it with a hammer a few times and get this raised up so we don't gouge the threads. Even though we're replacing it, still good idea. We'll knock this up a little bit. Just like so. Take that nut off. And what else do we got here? Oh, we got a nut here. Take off. And yeah, 2 nuts. And then the axle's kind of buried in there a little bit. So that's what we're going to do next. A 32 millimeter. You use your screwdriver and put it inside the fins of the rotor. You see if it's in the holes there. You use that to brace it when you break this loose. You want to use this and then a 1/2-inch breaker bar probably. It's going to be your best bet. Although if you're going to be doing stuff like this, you might want to invest in some air tools, air tank, impact gun. So we're going to break this loose. I haven't looked up the specs, but it's probably 120 to 180 foot-pounds, something like that. If you're lucky, you should be able to push the axle in a little bit here, just make sure it's free. There's going to be some splines on the axle, and you may want to, since we're replacing it, you can tap on this, but usually I like to put the nut on and still and tap it. It's just a good practice. So next we'll get the ball joint loose. Looks like the ball joint is a 19 millimeter. It feels pretty good. What's that?
You're holding a full-on conversation and stuff over there.
Yep, talking to myself. So as you see, we're just going to turn this nut off and we'll get it off, and then we'll use a hammer probably and tap here a few times, maybe on both sides, and it should free the lower ball joint from the steering knuckle. So I'm just going to keep turning. Then we should be able to pull the axle out of the knuckle and bearing assembly. Now the tricky part is popping that axle out. We'll just look at the other side because it's very similar. It's got kind of a little bit of a lip. Kind of sort of see, but the idea is usually to get a pry bar in here and give it a few pops. And usually pop the axle out. See, same procedure, just a longer axle on this side. But this one, kind of tucked up there, a little tricky to maybe pop out. So we'll see what tools we need that you might need to do this job. So there's actually a hole right here. You can get right to the edge of the axle. We're going to stick a pry bar in there and pop it out. And we're going to be getting right to the inside edge right here. But of course on the other side, on the other axle, through that hole. My biggest pry bar is not working, but I think I can get in here. See if fluid comes out. Yep, there's some fluid coming out, so I'll get a catch pan for that. We popped it out and we can just slide it out. Theoretically. Yep. So there's a drain right here. You might actually want to drain it. But we got a catch pan right there. Let's just hope it's not super duper special fluid. That's removing it. Oh! Wind. So we got a little clip here. Kind of helps hold it in place when it's in the transmission. That's what you're just kind of prying against, and it just collapses because it's a C-clip. It has an opening. So there it is. Splines, ABS, sensor ring, tone ring. Alright, we'll get the new one and get it ready to install. Basically ready, I'm sure. So there's the hole. Gear lube coming out. Just Hyundai. It says Hyundai gear lube 75 W85. Pretty much gear oil to me, I guess. Fill plugs in on a great spot right there. If that's it, find that spot. It's a little low. I shouldn't have had fluid come on up that bolt. This is the fill. So we want to get align the new axle right in that hole. It might be a good time to have an assistant that can help hold this off to the side so you get a nice straight shot. You want to be as straight as possible, and you just got to try and push it in so you get that clip on the end of the axle we showed you. Want that to collapse, of course, and go into the transmission. So that's what we're going to try to do. Much easier than I thought. Just popped into place with a couple good shoves, as you probably saw, and I believe it is in place. So that's really it. Installing the CV axle. We just want to, of course, reinsert this, put the ball joint back in. That is replacing your CV axle on your 2002 Hyundai. That's replacing your CV axle, your front drive axle, on your 2012 Hyundai. maybe you saw it on the video, but you can turn the steering wheel, or I was actually pulling on this. You pull this so the wheel is actually turning to the left. This is going to come out, and it's going to give you more room to swing this out, because I was having difficulty getting the axle out, and maybe you saw that, so that'll help you get it out. Alright, this torque on this is like 145 to 202. It's quite a wide range on that. I just try and tighten it and get it back to that dimple. Once you're over 140 and you get close to that dimple, I just stake it right back where it was. The ball joint is going to be about 60 foot-pounds. Wheel lug nut torque is 65 to 80 foot-pounds. Quite a range again. So to tighten this up, you can put a screwdriver in here and tighten it down, or you can have someone step on the brakes, and then you can do it that way. For the lower ball joint, I think you're going to have to actually put a jack underneath here and jack this to put pressure on it, because that nut's probably going to go on hard, and it's probably going to turn the ball joint and the nut are all going to turn. So you're probably going to use a jack or something to jack up on this and really put some pressure on that to get the nut to turn on to the ball joint, so the ball joint stays in place. And those are the 2 tips I have for you on putting it back together. Good luck to you. Well, right now as I'm doing it with my ratchet wrench, it seems to be going on no problem. Just give it a few good pounds up. So there's some kind of Teflon plastic Loctite on this nut. Some of it's worn off, but at 60-65 foot-pounds, I'm sure you will not have a problem with your lower ball joint nut just falling off. So tighten it down and try and get it down to 60 foot-pounds if you got a torque wrench for that. So that turned out I didn't need to jack it up, so there you go. So this is the fill plug up here. I can reach it with my hands around here, and you can use a 17mm wrench up through here. Now again, that fill plug seems to be lower than the axle. I'm not sure why fluid came out like it did, but this says this is where to fill it and check the fluid level, so it needs to be at least up to the top of this, or the bottom of this hole. So you don't get very many turns with your wrench. Such a tight fit. You could use a stubby 17 maybe, and go where I went with my hand to get it. But that's it right there. So, and it's going to be tricky to fill it too, so that's something to consider before you tackle this job. Hopefully you watched the whole video to know what's involved. So I think your best bet is to run a hose or something through here, or maybe even the top of the engine, run a hose through here on a bottle and squeeze it in. So those are my thoughts on the fluid filling process.